Welcome to Living Legacy Leadership, where we explore, discover, and share insights, tools, and strategies for a life well lived into elderhood. I'm your host, Donna Kim Brand, author, speaker, legacy strategy coach, and creator of the concept Living Legacy, where you choose to live life on your own terms while contributing to people, places, and projects along your life journey. I believe that the life you live is the legacy you leave. Now, the guests I bring to you each week all address some unique aspect of learning, leadership, or legacy. This helps you raise your own game as a leader in business and life, and also showcases some extraordinary people who exemplify living legacy leadership. At least once a month, I also offer a training session to skill you in game changer thinking for your own application. So get your notebook ready or sharpen up your memory by tuning in your attention, and we'll dive right in. Well, I'm happy to say that our next guest is one of my favorite people on the planet. Her name is Helen Raptoplous. Hey, Helen, how are you?
Hi, I'm so good. What a nice thing to say. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Now, Helen is an advocate for people to live their best and most ideal lives possible. In fact, her website is aimforideal.com, and she'll tell you more about that. Anyway, learning, growing, and playing with all the enchanting possibilities of life offers is what lights her up. She has an incredible husband, fabulous family, and beautiful friends that she cherishes most in her life. She also is fantastic as a designer in industrial and vintage design. She's an amazing, shall I say, I don't want to say cook, it makes it sound so plebeian when she has a wonderful taste in food. She's also loving international travel when it's allowed, and she's a serious consumer of books and podcasts. So ultimately, though, she wants to and is of service in supporting people to actualize their best life possible. And so welcome, Helen Raptoplous.
Aw, thank you so much. What a great introduction. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. My pleasure. In terms of life design, and you are a life design coach, I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. But people are born into families, in societies. They're surrounded by their local communities, but often larger communities, which include maybe ethnic groups or racial groups and so on. I know you come from a very ebullient, zesty Greek background. So,
yeah.
What would you say the Greek background that you're familiar with, how it impacts your own lifestyle, both for better, but also, I'll say for worse, but I mean, might put the kibosh on some things too.
Oh my gosh, great question. I am so proud to be Greek. I love being Greek. And the movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, is so perfectly aligned with how it really is. That is not made up. I would say that it really contributes to my life in the sense that family and food is very important, and, the sense of community and being there for your family. And I will also say that is the same thing I will say on the opposite side is, that's not always great, because it also means that they're aware and in on everything, and sometimes you don't want them to be. You just want some independence and to have some personality of your own. So the good and the bad are all the same thing. It's just that sense of community, the big family. We're really there for each other. We're very ingrained in each other's lives. We know maybe too much, and we also love food and coming together and eat. Just real quickly on the eating part, it feels like whenever we get together as a family, the whole experience is around when are we going to eat and what are we going to eat. That's like first and foremost, which is crazy.
Interesting. And of course, we know Greece has been around for millennia, and there are lots and lots of traditions, many of which are wonderful and worth keeping. But do you also find there's some traditions in terms of maybe even, because we're going to talk about lifestyle design, roles of women or traditional aspects of life that can make it tricky, let's say, to get along in an ever-changing world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think across all cultures, not necessarily just being Greek, but as women, we definitely have the role of being, the caretaker and the coach and the one who fixes everything and the one that makes sure that everybody's in touch and in contact. And sometimes that can be overwhelming, and it might feel like you're putting your own needs and your own desires on the back burner so that you can be all things to all people. And again, I don't think that's just a Greek thing, but
yeah.
When you grow up, you kind of think that that's your culture or your family. But as you grow up or as you see other people in other cultures, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. So I think all women do that. But there is that sense of wanting to take care of everybody, make sure they're happy and they're good. And that often comes at the detriment of making sure that, your own goals are a priority.
So you have become, you have so many talents and skills in your life, but these days you are known as a design coach. What is that actually, and how does it work?
Thank you. Great question. Lifestyle design coach. At first, I kind of thought I made that up somewhat, but when I checked it out, it actually was first mentioned in the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And not necessarily a lifestyle design coach, but the ideal of lifestyle design. And I think we all have a concept of what lifestyle is ideal and what we would most like to see for ourselves in our life. So by the idea of being a lifestyle design coach, I look at that somewhat like an interior design. Instead of rooms of your home that you might want to remodel or refresh or totally renovate and gut, instead of looking at rooms, we're looking at the segments of our life. And for everybody, those might be different, but the typical ones are definitely family and love, money, work, your health and your fitness, recreation, like, the whole sharpening the saw part of your life where you have fun, your spirituality, your personal development. Those are all the different areas of your life. And so with lifestyle design, we look at each one of those areas individually and then take an account of, if that were ideal for me and I just loved it and I know I was being the very best version of myself in that area of my life, what would it look like? What would it feel like? And then just start that vision, and then we work backwards from there. But that's where we start, with the dreaming part of what your ideal life would look like. And so we're designing your lifestyle.
Now, you say the dreaming part, and it's interesting because I think people sort of throw that word around a little bit flippantly, and it almost, they dream, but it's a fantasy. They don't think it can really happen. So is this something you've encountered with your clients where either they haven't pinned it down or because they don't think it can really happen, for one thing?
Yeah, my opinion on that would be, and that's an excellent question, because it's one of the things I definitely cover with people when we're looking at what they want. I want to be very clear that what they're doing in the long run is setting a goal and a serious intention. And so we often get stuck when we're talking about what they want. I have to ask them and get clear, is this a wish or a hope? Is this an idea that someday you would like this? Because that's a fine place to start. I call that the vision quest. You can start with all of your wishes and your hopes, but if we're going to get serious about you implementing and integrating that into your life, we're going to have to turn the wish or the hope into a goal. And the real way to find that out is, are you willing to make that a commitment? Are you willing to, put in the time and the work and the energy to accomplish that? Or are you satisfied with just wishing and hoping that, someday it's going to work out? And if that's enough for you, that's fine. I won't push. But if someone says, no, I don't want to just think about it, I want it to be a reality, well, then that's where I, hold them to the fire and say, well, you got to put in the time and the work and the energy. And on that, nobody has the time or the energy just out of nowhere. So they have to make the time and they have to make the energy. And so that's the real difference between a goal as a commitment versus a wish or a hope.
Interesting. I know from my own coaching experience that in that regard, one other sort of tranche of thinking along that way is that people tend to start from where they are and just kind of extrapolate out a little bit. That might be the first little tender steps of a next step, but they tend not to be terribly bold unless it's so bold that it becomes scary and undoable. So how do you balance the two between taking two teeny weeny little steps, which you need to start with somewhere, but then also being too bold so that feels unrealistic?
Great question. And I don't know. I struggle a little bit with taking any steps that are too bold because I don't know exactly what that would look like. So in my opinion, it's all right to take bold steps as long as you're owning that and you're comfortable with it. So I think it's a customized experience with each person. And the small steps, the baby steps, kind of gets the momentum going. And it lets you know that, yes, this is something that I'm really committed to. Or maybe once you get into working towards something, even if you're taking big steps or baby steps, you might start to think, well, I don't know if this is everything I really thought it was going to be or everything I want. Or even, worst case scenario, I really do want this, but I just don't think I could tell you that I'm absolutely committed to doing whatever it takes. And so then it's a reanalyzing of, do we put that somewhere else that you can work on that again later? Do we maybe need to back up and work on your mindset and on your beliefs and on your energy so that you can feel like you're worthy of this goal, like that you're absolutely available to receive it? Or do you need to, put it off aside and start with something different just to build up your confidence? Because confidence is a big part of it. Typically, if you can take a bold step, it shows me that you're confident and committed. And so that's where it was a little thrown off. But I think all in all, you can start with small steps, but big steps are great too. And each person's very different. Some people want to go slow and get comfortable. And other people are like, I want a result like now just to keep me in the game, to keep me motivated and inspired and in a sense of momentum, if that makes sense.
For sure. And I suppose, do people come looking for you once they've realized that they're living on autopilot and they don't want to do that anymore? Or is that a realization you help them uncover if they're finding they're too timid or whatever?
Both. They find me because they know they're living on autopilot. So I'm always talking about what I do in different areas and on, social media. And I like to say you should live your life by design and not by default. And sometimes that wakes people up and you don't even realize a lot of times that you're living in default because this is just your life. It's the day in and the day out. And when you really start to analyze it, you're like, am I in control of my day or is my day controlling me? So I do it both ways. There are some people who just, have been referred to me or come through one of my free workshops or a little introductory course. And then the realization is more prevalent to them because we're talking about it as opposed to they came to me for that specific thing. But it's really great. And I think it's so true of everybody that we just, no matter where we are or who we are, we get to a place where everything seems to just kind of be on autopilot and we're not questioning it or asking for it to be different until we stop and think about it. Because, we just get so busy and we get so wrapped up in so many things. And when you take time for yourself and you reflect, then you can say, I want things to be different. And in order for them to be different, I have to be different. That means I need to make some changes. What would that look like?
Wow. Make changes. Whoo. That's a really,
that's a big one.
It is a big one. And what you just said is actually very profound. In order to be different, we have to be different. We have to make changes to be different by definition. What do you find? Yeah. So do you see kind of a rearing of the head of some common obstacles that get in the way of that or that stop people from making progress or even taking the first steps?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ones, and of course they're different for different people. But I'd say some of the general ones off the bat are if they have a goal that's not clearly defined, like it's foggy or it's not there's not a specific measurement, so you wouldn't even know if you accomplished it. And that goes back to what we were just talking about a moment ago with the wish and hope versus it being a goal or commitment. And so if it's not clearly defined, it's going to feel like you're not making progress because you don't know what to do. You're still just thinking about it. So that's definitely an obstacle. And I, of course, help people with that.